I am so excited to be talking to two of my favorite theater people today. Um, and we are going to be talking about personal finance, which is another thing that I am very, very weirdly, nerdily excited to talk about today. And to hopefully help with some of these really, really good, meaty questions in the chat. So I'm going to start by introducing the two guests. And then with each of the guests, I'd like for you both to share your pronouns, which I can see they're already in your names. And then what is the theater experience that comes to mind as your favorite theater experience ever? And it's probably the one that like just popped into your head. Like what is the most seminal or impactful experience that you have had in theater? And I'm going to start with, I know it's such a big question. I've been asking everybody the same thing. And I want to start with Jessica Champagne Hansen, who's full-time faculty at East LA College and runs the costume discipline in the theater arts department. In her time at ELAC, she has created the costume emphasis for the AA Theater Arts degree and a certificate of achievement in costume design and construction with over 11 new courses in costuming and makeup. She's a professional costume designer, and she also teaches one of ELAC's personal finance classes in the theater department, which is part of the reason why she's here, because she and I have worked on this personal finance topic in the past. So Jessica, will you give us your pronouns, and then what's that play that comes to mind for you?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm Jessica Hansen. My pronouns are she and hers. This is hard question. There's one that first came to mind, and it was, I think, because it was most recent, but then rethinking, it wasn't necessarily the play itself, but it was that moment. So my mom's a theater person, self-taught completely how to sew and make costumes. And my dad is a really big in the corporate world. And so he never understood what we were talking about. Like for years, he never understood what my mom and I were talking about. And then once at one of my shows in college, he turned to me and he said, "Wow, I think I get it." And so that moment was really cool for him to come see my show, and then to say like, "Hey, I think I understand what just happened and that you were a part of it." So that would be my favorite theater experience.
That's lovely, thank you. And Michael A. Shepard, or Shep, is the artistic director of Los Angeles's multiple award-winning Celebration Theater. Producing, directing, and acting credits at Celebration include The Boy from Oz, Booty Candy, The Color Purple for The Women of Brewster Place, Take Me Out, Coffee Will Make You Black, Title of Show, and numerous others in his 10-year career at the theater. He is a major figure in the LA art scene, and we are so excited to have him with us. Can you share your pronouns and what comes to mind as your like that show or that theater experience?
That's a very, I mean, I have to go with Jessica. That is such, I've been around for a very, very long time. And so having just one moment, and I'm a singer trying to think about it. First of all, Michael Shepperd, I am artistic director, as Camille just said, at Celebration Theater. And I have to always say this, for those of you who don't know Celebration Theater, it is the oldest continuously producing lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, two-spirited, allied, asexual, cisgender, gender non-binary, gender non-conforming theater in the country. I always have to say that so people know exactly who we are. My pronouns are he, him, his, and thanks for the snaps, Annie. And I believe the one moment, the very first, I always knew I was going to be an actor, or wanted to be an actor. And luckily I became an actor, I guess. But there's one moment that I have to relive every time I do this, is that the first musical I ever did, because I was told growing up I could never sing. I had the worst singing voice. And I was asked to do a musical in Chicago. This is 30 plus years ago. And I said, "I don't sing." And the director said, "Yes, you do. Just bring yourself to it and you will sing." And I went, okay, and I did this role and I misbehaving. And I realized if I bring my entire true self to this every single time, I will be a success. And that's every time I do this, that moment, hearing that director, Karen Kessler, say that to me, just bring your true self to the role. And that's what I think, that one moment where I went, oh, that's what I need to do every single time, bring my one true self.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, let's talk about money. I want to talk first about how you made your money because a lot of the folks with us today are probably in their early 20s. So, how did you make your living in your early 20s? And how do you make your living now? Maybe that's the same, maybe that's a different kind of grouping of things. And I want to start with you, Shep, if that's okay. So, how did you make your living in your early 20s? How do you make your living now?
Well, after I left college, the first thing I did, of course, was get a job waiting tables. But that job seriously lasted one day. I was fired on the very first day I ever waited tables at my very first job. And they looked at me and goes, "You're not a real good person with people at tables. Do you want to be a bartender?" So the next day I started being a bartender. But I knew that was financially trying to sustain myself. And I bartended quite a bit and I auditioned a lot, but I wasn't getting cast. And then finally this thing happened. I started bringing my true self. I got cast. And then I started doing a lot of children's theater. Children's theater. I would literally, this was my day in my 20s. This is no exaggeration. I would wake up at 6 a.m., be in a caravan by 6:45 to perform all day kid shows with Child's Play Touring Theater in Chicago. I get off at 3:30. I take a half-hour nap, go to a rehearsal at 5. Rehearsal would go from 5 to 7. I would have to be in my bartending job at 7:30. I wouldn't get off of that until 2:30, well, 2:33 or 4 after cleanup. Get 3 hours of sleep and be back up, do it every day. That lasted, I would say, for 4 years. That's what I would do for 4 years. And I loved it, and I was energetic in my 30s, and that's what I wanted to do because I wanted to do as much theater as I could. And that doesn't include the workshops I would love to do or the readings I would do. I just knew that this is all I wanted to do. Did I value myself monetarily during that time? Not as much as I should have. I probably could have, I should have asked for more because I was giving more. And I think you can't be afraid to say, listen, I know you want me for this workshop, and you're giving me $20 for gas. I think you need to make it $40 for gas. And that seems like, wow, that's not a big difference, but it could be a very big difference to someone. That means they may have a meal they can afford later that week. But that's how I spent my 20s. I was hustling. I hustled every single day in my 20s. And when I finally quit bartending, I was 28 and I got a national tour. Luckily, from this production of Eight Misbehaving, I ended up getting a national tour and going to Broadway. So that was crazy, but hard work. It's all hard work. And you have to value what it is you do. That's the thing, because we all want to go, I just want to take the job. I just want to work. I don't want to do that. And that's great. That is what you're supposed to do in your 20s. You're supposed to learn. You have to take every tool you can learn, but don't let someone tell you that you shouldn't be making something from that learning. And you have, as an artist, you have to make the choice. You have to make the choice to say, this is something I have to do because I know what I'm going to get from this. And other things you can say, no, I can turn that down. They're not willing to, to value me. I can turn that down. And you have to start making those choices of what is valuable to you and what is not. You can't do everything. And if people get mad at you, guess what? They're not supposed to be in your journey, period.
Awesome.
All right, I talked so much, I'm sorry.
No, that was great. That was great. And can you share how you make your living now? Like what's changed in the interim?
Well, several things. I'm the artistic director of Celebration Theater, which is a not-for-profit, so I don't make a lot of money there, but I also do voiceover work and I direct all over the city of Los Angeles and any other place where they'll have me. I'm still acting, but I mostly direct now. I really love directing. And plus, you make a lot more money and you're in and out. You're 4 weeks in, you're gone, you've made your money, you can move to the next project as opposed to being an actor. You have 8, 10, sometimes 12 weeks in a production. And no lie, everyone knows this, I married well. So that also helped me. I won't lie. That's what I did. I ain't gonna lie. Why should I lie? That's what I did. I didn't know it at the time though, which was great. I had no idea. And then when it happened, it was like, I'm gonna do this play over here now. Is that okay? So there you go.
Yes, I married an actor who's now a lawyer, so
See?
thank you. Jessica, can you talk about what those early 20s were like for you and then kind of where you are now?
Yeah, so my 20s was when it comes to finances was really hard. Like Shep was saying, every single day I woke up and I was like, okay, what can I do today? And it was, theater days, 14-hour, 15-hour days. So I moved out here to LA from Boston for grad school, and so we were paid as teaching assistants, but it's so expensive to live in Orange County that I left. And I'm going to be really honest with you about numbers. So I hope this is helpful. But I feel after many years of thinking about it, I don't really feel shame about it because it's our reality. So I left undergrad with $195 of student loans. And then not to pay for classes, but just to pay to live in Orange County while I was in grad school, I racked up $45,000 of debt. So it's so much debt that I almost wasn't able to have my name when we purchased our home. So student loan debt is no joke, friends. So you really want to know what you're getting into. I signed all of the loan paperwork for undergrad thinking I was signing up for a dorm. So, so just be aware of what you're doing and how it adds up and how you plan to pay for it. So even though I had a job in grad school, it really wasn't cutting it. So once I graduated, I actually worked at the theme park. And for the first time, I was making pretty good money. And I was like, well, this is how it works. This is how much money people make. And then when that contract ran out and then I started getting other gigs, I was like, hold on a second. That was so much better when I was getting paid before, and I didn't realize it was so unusual. So I did a lot of jobs. I say now that I did all of these freelance gigs so that I would have cautionary tales for my students. But I did television work that was non-union. I didn't become union until a couple of years ago, so all the work I was doing was not union. I was teaching. I did a lot of teaching with children. We started a summer camp at a theater that I worked at in Los Angeles. So it was a lot of different jobs that I pieced together. I mean, I designed really weird costumes at that time. I designed wedding dresses. I designed uniforms for bands to wear. Like really, if it was worn, I would design it. And so one thing to say too is I did a lot of jobs that did not pay, or I did jobs that said they were going to pay me. I didn't sign a contract because I didn't realize how important that was, and I did not get paid. So I did an entire Shakespeare Summer Festival, and all the people involved were folks that came from other festivals, and so I thought, I'm going to get paid. And then at the end they said, we didn't make enough money to pay you. So I have all the horror stories about that time period where I was freelancing, and then I really learned how important contracts were, and then I learned, as my mom said, I like to learn things the hard way, and so I guess I'm just proving her right. And then one other thing I wanted to mention was that I worked at a school. And so most of my freelancing early career, I didn't want to be a teacher because I thought that meant I was a failure. We were talking a lot about like emotion, right, being tied. But guess what? I'm an amazing teacher. And so I was avoiding the thing that I was supposed to be so much. And it makes, like, we're our own worst enemy, right? So now I'm doing exactly what I like. And because of it, my finances are really shifting, where I was always, like, every moment I'd wake up and I'd be like, there's not enough money. Like, there's not, like, I'm not paying my bills. And like, for the first time, now that I'm in education, that's my main source of income. And that has been, like, stabilized my whole career. So, and then one other thing I want to say is I still do freelance, and I know later we're going to talk about having families. And Shep made a really good point about making a choice. So when I freelance design at most theaters as a costume designer, I lose money. I do not make enough money. If I sat down and added up my gas and the hours that I spent, and then the kicker is who watches my 2 children, I lose money every time. And I do it because I love it, and I do it because I bring my students with me so they have their first professional experience. But it is not how I make money, to be really honest with you. It's how I lose money. So that's a really important topic when it comes to, it's the childcare where I really like, we used to pay babysitter, like when I was a babysitter, I got to watch TV all night, eat their snacks, and I got $20. And that's not how it goes anymore, right? So it's a big expense.
Thank you. And so many people are sharing the debt that they're accruing in the chat. I really appreciate you doing that. I shared that I took on $60,000 in debt for my graduate program, and I have really mixed feelings about that. Really mixed feelings. So with all of this, and Jeffrey, I see your question, is it a good idea to get a BFA education and pay for the debt for a well-known, credible institution, or pursuing acting head-on without going to school, like if you're already in the union already? I feel like there's no one size fits all, and I'm gonna ask Shep to weigh in on that. I do think that, and this goes back to kind of some of those responses at the beginning when people were saying, I don't care about money. Get it? I want you all to think about that differently. I want you to think about not, I don't care about money, but I don't need discretionary spending, or I don't feel drawn to own a home, or I don't feel drawn to like take expensive vacations, which is different from I don't care about money, because money is a reality. It's not an emotional thing. It's the way that we have a home and eat food and take care of ourselves when we get hurt. So just thinking, so all of this, the debt is a factor in your career, and it is often the thing that can push people out of this career. So with all of you brilliant folks who've been participating over the past few weeks, I want you in this field in 15 years and 20 years. And so you're laying to kind of investigate your attitude toward money and what you need now and what you might need in the future. That's why it's a good thing to start thinking about that now, because I don't want you all to hit a wall in 5 years and go, okay, I'm out, I can't do this anymore, right? Shep, what do you think about the sort of accruing debt, and Jessica too, but as far as being an actor and also somebody who casts actors, are you looking at grad school? Are you looking at those big names? What's your view on that?
Well, for me, and just to take the latter part of that question, do I look at on their resumes and go, oh, they went to Yale, they went to Carnegie Mellon, they went, to these different very prestigious schools? No, I don't look. It doesn't, unless I look and I see it and see if there's a connection to the schools I went to. Like if somebody went to Columbia in Chicago, I go, Columbia alum, let's see what you can bring, because I know what they teach there and how they teach. And I want to see if you're following what the tenets of what they do at that school, that type of thing. But, I'm not going, I have to cast this person because they went to this school. No, I do not. In terms of the debt that you accrue, even for a BFA level, can be devastating. I mean, it took me 24 years to pay off all my debt for school. That's, and am I using that education? I'm going to be honest and say, no, I'm not. I mean, granted, I got to learn a lot about, artists that I didn't know from, playwrights I didn't know. But as a Black man, I learned nothing about the world I was going to enter into the theater world as a Black person. It wasn't until I started doing theater with other Black people that I started to do that. And do I think I could have skipped that part of my life and went right out into the real world of acting? Maybe. I'm not sure, because I didn't do that. But I know that I got more out of working with like-minded people and learning more than that. Because I went, I paid a lot of money because I went to Illinois Wesley and then to Columbia. And then I paid a lot of money not to learn how to write a resume. I didn't learn how to write a resume until I was actually out of college. So there are things that, and having not been in school for many years, I don't know if they're still not teaching how to write a resume, but I see a lot of resumes from kids out of these big universities, and I go, maybe you shouldn't do a bio of what you did in your church basement on your resume, because I'm gonna laugh at it. I'm just gonna be honest with you, I'm gonna laugh at that. But then again, I shouldn't be laughing at it because they paid all this money to go to school and they weren't taught that. And I have, and in terms of graduate schools, particularly for BIPOC, it's like, what are, all the kids I hear who are spending all this money and not being given roles because the white faculty has no idea what to do with them because there's only 3 of them in the entire program. And well, I don't think they can do Uncle Vanya, can they? I don't know. So, we should probably do an August Wilson to make sure they feel comfortable. It's like, I want to see, are those environments safe for us now? Are they safe? Because honestly, I mean, not to bring up a term that might trigger some people, but I had a lot of Karens in school who looked at the color of my skin and chose to make me the butt of jokes and to tell me that I was not going to succeed simply because of the color of my skin. And I understand that that's still happening from grade school to middle school to high school, college, graduate schools. Are we setting ourselves up to be hurt more by paying these $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year? Are we being hurt more, or are we actually learning? That's my thing, and I'm coming from particularly just a BIPOC look at the money that's being spent.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
No, this is, I mean, that you have to deeply investigate the school, the program, the faculty, and then also, I think it was last week that folks were talking about, like, wait until you need it. Wait until you are drawn to additional education. Wait until you know what you need it for. Because that's the thing that also worries me when people go straight from undergrad to grad school without actually working in the field, is that there's a vast difference between studying something and working in it. Those are different. So graduate school should prepare you for the career that you want. So you have to wait until you know. And then, yeah, I'm seeing in the chat folks talking about their programs as well. I know SDA just released something as well for USC of the journey that they're on. Jessica, because ELAC focuses so much on career readiness, workforce readiness, can you speak to what you think it's important for emerging professionals to understand about when it comes to financial literacy before they start getting into the field, especially things that folks may be able to research on their own? Because again, we're not going to give you all the answers today, but what are the big things that people should ask themselves or look up before they start to take those steps?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I wrote a class at ELAC, and it was all of those hard lessons that I had learned put into one class. I joke with my students that it's the class that I wrote crying at work in the bathroom stall, because it was all of the hard things that, I was like, why didn't anyone teach me this? And I loved grad school. It was amazing. I know I paid a lot for it, but I became such a stronger artist by attending, and I really needed to grow up some more, and I went straight through from high school to undergrad to grad school, and for me it was the right choice because I I also needed to get out of, to move. And so part of it was logistics to get from the East Coast to the West Coast. And that was sort of the motivation. So in that class, we talk a lot about finances. Taxes seem to be one of the most stressful topics. And in the poll, I saw that popped up a lot. Yeah, I mean, taxes are hard and stressful for everyone, but so much more stressful for theater artists or artists in general. So I think understanding what's happening when it comes to taxes, today we're hoping to talk a little bit about some of the most recent changes, like AB 5, which is an assembly bill that is about sort of the gig economy. And so I'm a costume designer. So when I get hired by a theater, I will no longer be hired as an independent contractor. I will be hired as an employee. And so how I'm paid and the tax implications are different. Something else that I would research is if you want to be part of a union, I think it's really important to know how much those annual dues cost. My husband's an art director, and when we were younger and he got in, we were like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. And then he was like, got the bill in the mail, and we're like, Hess, how are we even paying like your entry dues, let alone your annual, like this is insane. And so knowing what it costs to be in that union, all unions are different, even if they're all part of the same umbrella. Each local has their own fees. So I would research that. I would also look at, this is research that you can't find completely online, but chat with some folks that have the job that you might want to have and ask them some questions, and if they're willing to be honest about numbers, so you can anticipate the kind of living situation financially that you expect, or that, your minimum, like Camille keeps saying, that activity. The reason why you may not have done that yet is because it's hard and it's scary. So if you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that template where I put down how much I pay for my utilities and my student loans and all of the expenses that I have, I'll do that tomorrow. Oh, I'll do that next week. I put it off for years and years, and still when my husband says we probably should look at the budget, I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's because it's tied to emotion, right? It's very stressful, but gosh, we really need to do it because you've got to have a number. So much of my life, my dad would be like, how's it going? What's your salary? And I didn't know the answer because I was too afraid to sit down and add it all up, let alone compare it to my expenses and job expenses like gas, and paying to dress like a costume designer, whatever that even means. But you have to, there are so many expenses, and they add up and you don't realize that. And so those are some of the suggestions I would make based on what we talk about in my class.
And I know some people use Mint, but question for either of you, how do you track that budget? I like Mint because it's very smart and you just connect it to your accounts and then it starts telling you like, this is how much you spend on groceries and you can reorder things. Other suggestions?
Real quick, I do a really not technological approach where I go through all of my bank statements, and the like discovering process is important for me. So I don't like a computer system to just be like, hey Jess, you spend this much on shoes, and I'd be like, nobody asked you. No, but that question, like how much we spend on groceries or this or that, I actually like to find that out myself because in the discovering, it's more meaningful for me. But my husband, on the other hand, he purchases everything on a specific credit card because that credit card does an annual, yeah, Shep likes that. It does like the annual statement. He's real fancy, but I do it a different way.
See, I'm like your husband in that regard. I know I have 2 credit cards that I use. I have several credit cards because I have my reserve credit cards just in case, oh, there's a death in the family and you have to fly 40,000 miles to go and see your, and you need that extra $15,000 right then. But I have found out I got the new Apple card, and they pay you 3% back on everything. Like everything you purchase is 3% back. And and you get it, and it's cheaper to get it goes with all your purchases at Apple as well. So it's a great card for me. And they itemize everything for me. And I know that it's just I can spend this much every month. They tell me exactly what it is. They let me know exactly what my rates are going to be, my finance rates. If I have $2,000 worth of credit, and if you pay $750 of that, you're only paying $13 in whatever the APR. So I love that. I mean, I'm like, but at the same time, Jessica, I am sitting now at my desk in, well, what is now my dining room, which has become my tax desk, where I have literally everything is like around me like this. It is like, I'm just like sitting here going, because I have to go through everything to itemize it and see exactly what it is I'm doing, because I don't trust anything.
And because I know that when I was in college, I had very limited understanding of my taxes. What are those things that you just held up, Shep? Like, are they 1099s? Are they W-9s? Are they receipts? What is all involved in an artist's taxes?
For example, this is all my mortgage stuff. I won't show you. This is like mortgage stuff, but I'm going through. This literally is SDC stuff right here. Let's see. What else do I have? I have a lot of papers with just things scribbled on it. I have, what else? A different home, a different mortgage stuff right here with new rents, which I'm trying to get out of. I have, I don't know. Everything is just sitting here writing in front of me. It's crazy.
I remember that when I was,
lots of insurance statements.
When I was just out of college, I had one year I had 10 different jobs because I was DJing and I was a copywriter independently and I was producing, and I had all of these 1099s, which are like independent contractors. And what I didn't realize is that if you do that in the city of LA, you can get hit with a business tax. And I did not have any money, and the tax was more than $1,000, and it was like probably the most stressful financial situation that I've been in, just because I did not have that money. So yes, taxes I think are something, and for all of you thinking about getting the way that you're getting paid. So if you are getting paid in like a lump sum, so if somebody says you are getting $500 for this project and they hand you a check for $500, it's a good idea to put some of that money aside immediately for taxes, because otherwise that's where you get to the end of the year and you don't have that money anymore, but you owe part of it back. So really having a sense of and that's part of this discussion with AB5 too, everybody, which is, are you an independent contractor or are you an employee? Because if you're an employee, money gets taken out of your paycheck before it ever gets to you. If you're an independent contractor, you're paid in a full chunk usually.
And also with AB5, it's like they're looking to take away that independent contract. That's going to be gone. Everyone has to be an employee. Mm-hmm. Everyone has to, no matter, I made $250, you're an employee, and we have to take your taxes out, and we have to, I don't even, and I'm wrong, because we've been having a lot of meetings in the theater community about AB5, and I don't think you pay into health and pension or anything like that. It's just taxes being taken out. Yeah. And which is just like, oh, okay, thanks.
Can we talk about benefits as well? There's so much in this topic, so I know that I'm moving past things. And Jessica put a lot of her course materials into the Dropbox, and it has a lot of specific answers to these as well. Benefits. So first, what are benefits? Just if folks are not familiar with that is, and then how can artists get things like health insurance in particular? Where might they be able to get that?
So part of my career, I was not, I didn't have health insurance. I've done a lot of research, and it's actually, there's a shocking number of artists that will go without health insurance. So most of my benefits come through the college that I teach at now. But before, we kind of would bounce between, because my husband also has a creative career, we would bounce between insurance for who had benefits available. And so we would I would be on his, and then if he had something, he would jump onto mine. And then when we had children, we were like, this is so unpredictable. And so the kids are on mine because I'm tenured faculty. So my job is much more secure than his, as far as benefits, as his is for television. So that would be benefits, but also some employers will offer additional benefits like retirement, something that I really didn't start thinking about until I had our kids. I just thought, well, I'm just gonna have to work forever. And so that was part of it. But and then my husband's benefits are all through his union. I'm also a part of the union for costumes, but I do not take benefits from that union. I take them from school. But for designers, a union is a wonderful option for insurance. You just have to realize that many unions, the hours that you work contribute to whether or not you're eligible. So if you don't have enough hours, then that's going to be tricky, right? And this time, how are you, getting hours when shows aren't filming? And so luckily there's a lot of programs happening. But those are most of the benefits for my end.
Awesome. Shep, do you want to add anything on the benefit side?
I don't have a lot to say on that. It's when you start having, a family, that's when things start to change the most. I went through years and years without having any health insurance whatsoever, and which tended to, for me, go, I don't know what this growth is. I just hope it'll go away because I don't have the money to go to a doctor. To now, I'm at the doctor within 35 seconds. If there's any type of small growth. But having children changed everything, where it's like, I had to really go, well, I'm a member of Actors Equity. I'm a member of SDC. I'm a member of SAG-AFTRA, who is offering the best benefits. And then I looked at everything that they're offering and went with my 2 kids. I have to have I had to outsource it from the agencies that I have. Even though I was making enough money out of equity wasn't paying for my kids in a way that I needed them to be handled. So I had to go out. And the Affordable Care Act was actually what worked well for my family. Some people disagree with that, but for my family, it's been amazing. I got medications today that had I paid out of pocket, it would have been like $700. I paid 31 cents. So yes, is it a lot of money to pay monthly? Sure, but I'm at a point in my life where it's like, yeah, I might need that. I need that medication right now. And I would rather not pay $700 out of pocket every time I need something.
Thank you so much. And I think this is another area, I'm 36. I have 2 children. My need for benefits and the way that I use benefits is, like Shep is saying, way different than when I was in my early 20s. I'm also incredibly accident prone. I currently have a broken toe. And so when I didn't have health insurance, which was a lot of my 20s, I was real nervous going down steps, all of that, because it can, it's a risk, it's a risk not to have it. But also, if all of you were going like, oh my God, this is so much money. I don't have any money now. How do I have more money? Just know that it is that sort of the short term, medium term, long term, right? So what do you need in the short term? What do you need in the next 5 years? And then just think it ahead, right? Think it ahead to down the road. Are you going to want a family? Are you like, and then the wonderful thing about these jobs in the creative sector is that you can shift, you can change, jobs in any sector, but there's no, whatever you're doing now is not for always. So if right now it's working for you to be cobbling things together and to be doing the crazy long day that Shep was talking about and Jessica was talking about, which is also what I did in my early 20s. That can be what works today and for the next year. And then you can shift, and then you can start thinking about teaching or start thinking about, you know, having the day job and the evening job, all of that. So this is not for always, this is not forever, right?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go, Camille. I'm sorry. Oh.
No, I was going to ask you another question.
I believe that we as artists do have to, and I can say this in hindsight, is to take that moment to look and see exactly what the trajectory you want in your career. What is that? What is it? You know, and then if, you know, there are certain people who go, I'm gonna be honest with you. I see a lot of actors who come in audition who think they're just going to be famous and make $1 million a year because that's what we do as actors. And they don't want to put in the work. They just want to be, oh, look, I've got 47,000 people following me on TikTok. I don't care. I honestly don't care. What work have you put in to make this, you know, audition sing for me so that I remember you? Doesn't matter whether you get cast, you know, because you know, casting is a whole nother story. Don't ever worry about not getting cast because it really, well, you may go in and give the best audition everyone in the room thinks so, but casting is one of those things that, you know, there's so many different things that are happening within the room. Don't ever worry about that. Never leave the room sad. But you also have to consider what it is you want to do with your life. Creating is what we say at Disney. Yes, I work at Disney sometimes too. And when we say at Disney, it's like, create your blue sky. What is your 1 year plan? What is your 3 year plan? What is your 5 year plan? Don't go beyond 5, just keep it that. And if you don't want to go behind 1 or 3, that's cool as well. But start thinking about what those things are. Thinking about the actors you want to emulate, you know, and what did they do? Study what they did in their careers to do that. Be clear about who you are as a performer. And then in that blue sky actuals that you're creating, create the type of money you want to make. Create the type of, okay, if you want to do a gig economy and you want to work as hard as I did in my 20s, cool, I am all for that. I learned so much and I'm grateful that I did it. But also right now, we're in a totally different world than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. Last year, we're in a totally different place. So you have to really look strongly because what's happening in our business is changing. It has changed. How we're going to do theater is changing. How we are going to do film and television is changing. The stories are going to change now because of what is happening with, you know, in terms of Black Lives Matter and creating diversity, equity, and inclusivity. Those are going to change. Now is the time to sit down and actually have that conversation with yourself about what it is I want to actually do, and never be ashamed of taking a job at Trader Joe's or taking a job at, you know, Millie's coffee shop. Don't be ashamed of that. That's how we get through. That is how we create. That is how we learn. Don't be ashamed of that. What you need to do though now is start creating those plans. And that has to include financials as far as I'm concerned, because we don't know where the money is anymore. So we have to look. We have to be clever. We have to be fun in what we do. And we have to really stay truthful to what it is, who we are. Again, I'm gonna keep going back to that, being truthful to who you are, because that's what's gonna actually push you forward in this business and not hold you back.
Thank you so much. And that doesn't make you less of an artist. If you're thinking about the money, if you're thinking about how much you want to make, that is unrelated. That doesn't make you like, being practical and being an artist are not mutually exclusive, right? Shep, I want to ask you, because we all started talking about this, and this was a question in the Facebook group, which is awesome, about investment, financial investment specifically, but you were kind of broadening that out. How do you invest in your career as an emerging arts professional? And what are some of the things that you should be thinking about? Things like, how much do I drop on headshots? How do I approach like taking classes? Because those things can add up really quickly.
And we need things like headshots, and we have to have headshots. Do your due diligence. The first thing you want to do is when you go to look at headshots, you can have your best friend going, oh, you have to go to, Millie Delmont. Yes, I just said Millie Delmont, a reference from, Thoroughly Modern Millie. I did it because I didn't want to mess with anybody else's name. So you have to go to Millie Delmont, and you have to get your photos taken by this person. You need to just go, don't fall for your friend's enthusiasm. Do your research, because if you do not find yourself represented in the portfolio of the person who's taking these pictures, don't do it. Don't do it. And I'm gonna tell you something else. Right now, if you have a friend who has an iPhone 11 and a ring light and a black screen, you can do a headshot like crazy. I am currently using a headshot a friend of mine took at a Hanukkah party. They set up a screen, they were taking Hanukkah pictures of everybody, it was great. And they did a headshot of me, and the lighting was perfect, and it looks great. And that is what I use for my headshot right now. It was taken on an iPhone 11. You can do that, and you can touch it up yourself at home. You can find a cheap thing to touch it up, get those suckers, because they, back in the day, we had to have 500 printed headshots with us. You don't have to do that now. You just place them in a pocket holder, and they're just there. Pocket holder, how old am I? You place them online, and they're there. So headshots, find someone you trust. You can take your own headshots. But if you want to go to someone who is professional, do your due diligence, particularly people of color. You have to do your due diligence, because if you don't see anybody who looks like this in their files, don't go, because they're not going to do how to do your makeup. They're not going to do your lighting. They don't know. In terms of other things, you can create, okay, for example, read every play you can read biographies, get a library card, y'all. I know you're gonna, a library, I don't want to go into a library. Guess what? The library downtown has a font of knowledge that you don't have. Go down there and learn from that. That you can start with that. You want to do things cheap? Get your friends together online in a Zoom thing and read plays once a week. There's so much you can do on the cheap to create these things. You don't have to dress a certain way. You don't have to look a certain way. You just go ahead and do it. You have to be creative. You have to be clever. I know I'm forgetting certain part of the question you asked me, Camille, so I'm just like spitballing.
Oh, this is great.
It really is. There's so many ways to become a better person in this business. Having honest conversations like this, letting the conversations we're having right now fall into conversations you're having with your other performer friends, and have them openly and honestly. That's the way it's going to work. Because if you're like bullshitting around and trying to figure out how, a Kardashian did this, and we all know how they did it, don't do that. Don't. But I'm also sex positive. So if you want to do it too. So, it's on you. So it's like, but I have to say, just have conversations with people. People are willing to give you the information about these type of things. Find people, go, can I see your resume? Can you just send me a copy of your resume? Can you send me a copy of what your website looks like? And there are places online that you can do a cheap website that looks just as good as some of the more expensive headshots of website places. I just think, do the work. The work is not going to come to you. No one's, you can sit right here. I know Spielberg's gonna call any minute, girl. Hold up. I'm just gonna sit here for a minute. I can't go to the store with you right now. Spielberg's gonna call. No, they're not. They're not gonna call unless you do the work, period.
Thank you. I love it. Jessica, with the investments, that's all tax deductible, isn't it? Like headshots, the cost of that, all of that's tax deductible, or can be?
Here's the trick is that, if you're paid on a 1099, it is deductible. But if you're paid on a W-2, it's really hard to start deducting those things. One of the suggestions I would give is find someone who does entertainment taxes. Everyone else has no clue. The fact that you even walk in with a stack, already they're like, when we first did our taxes, joint taxes when we were married. We went to one of I don't know what you just like I don't want to name a specific company, but we went into like a regular tax company to have it done, and it was literally cha-ching, cha-ching, every 1099, this much money to process that piece of paper. And they had no clue. Like my husband would say, you know, can we write off this? Or I'd say, oh, I do this, can I write off that? You know, writing off Netflix and they would be like, nope, that's not research. No, but really it is. And so you really need to find a tax person that can help you. And it's not like you can go on the internet and be like, tax person who's cool about entertainment. You're not going to find who you want. So you have to ask. You have to ask people, who do you use? And that's usually the best way. It's by word of mouth. Also, like how we find our jobs, right? It's all by word of mouth. You're not really going online and finding, especially in design, a lot of our jobs aren't even posted. And so somebody asked, how much would a tax person charge you? Good question. When my husband and I first got married, it was like $200. Now we get charged about $450 to $500. It varies. It varies on how many states you also work in. So if you start working in other states, now you're filing taxes in an additional state. So yes, we can write things off, but it's getting a lot trickier. This particular year was the first time where, in my family, we really saw the difference of what could and couldn't be a write-off.
Thank you. And yeah, when I went in that same year that I was like, I don't know how to do this, and I think I owe taxes, I did end up going to a specialist that was a referral friend of a friend. And I remember he was like, how much did you spend on makeup? Because I was also acting, and you know, how much did you spend on this? How much did you spend on this? And the amount that I paid for him, it was so worth it financially to make that investment in the tax preparer. Yeah. What are some other things potentially that folks, if they're creating a budget, especially if they're just kind of stepping into this field, what are some other things that people might not think about that they should include in their budget? So somebody mentioned websites. We have headshots, which again can range in price. And I would also say if you are 20 years old and your appearance is still changing and you're thinking about cutting your hair off and dyeing it, please don't drop $1,000 on your headshots if you're going to change your appearance, right? You don't need to do that, and especially if you're younger and you're going to change the way that you look. Keep it cheap. But what are some other expenses that people might not already have planned for?
I think something also very simple is every time you send out an email, if you have at the bottom of every email you sent out, your name, your website, and you can also have one of those, like that little block you can click on that you can add like 2 or 3 pictures of yourself underneath that. Those are easy things to do. I saw somebody actually said something about business cards. I think business cards are great. I think that having them right now makes no sense, because who are we passing them out to? If we're doing our due diligence and staying inside with our mask, who are we passing those cards out to? So don't waste your money on those right now. But I do like having a card, but make sure it's a card that people recognize when they see it. Because I, have a card, that has, Richard Sherman. Yes, Richard Sherman, who wrote Mary Poppins. I'm using his name right now. It says Richard Sherman, phone number, email. I'm gonna look at that after I get home from being drunk and go, I have no idea who this person is. Boom. But if that card has a picture on it and a symbol or something, you go, and you look at it right away when you hand it to them, you go, oh, yeah, okay, cool. So make sure you're super creative if you're going to use business cards. I don't know, Jessica?
So as a designer, our computers and the software that we need is very expensive. And you need a lot of equipment to do your job. Your kit is very expensive. If you're a makeup artist, you're spending a lot of money on makeup. Costume designers are all, and I know a lot of theater artists are, but costume designers are always in their car. Like before Amazon, I lived in the car, shopping and driving around to find things. So a lot of times I think, especially in Los Angeles, we don't, if we have a car, those car expenses add up. Transportation in general. We used to be very mobile, and obviously things have changed a lot recently. And then back to the software, there's some software that it can really, when you're first starting out, it makes a dent. Like all of a sudden, you know, to keep up, you want to do digital renderings, and you need to buy a certain software to make that happen, and hopefully you got it when you still had your student ID. If you want to buy anything, buy it while you have your student ID. But without that student discount, you're dropping a lot of money, hundreds of dollars. Yeah.
Thank you. And someone has asked on the Q&A, and I think this is a great question. So we are in a very strange moment when income is not happening for a lot of people. And this is a particularly financially difficult moment. Do either of you have tips? Because somebody was mentioning, like, how do you budget right now, given that the future is so uncertain? It's a really big, hard question, and I wonder, either of you want to speak to that?
I can start. My husband is in network television. So for every year, he is unemployed for 3 to 4 months. So, and it actually happened to overlap. They had 2 days of filming actually left. He only missed 2 days of filming before they were all sent home. And so every year we have to plan for him not working. And so, there's an occasional, not now, but sometimes there's an occasional commercial that he might do, or, I'm really a nervous person, like all the time. And so I made a rule that, if he was going to do this, it's high paying, but it's high stakes career, that we always have 6 months of our mortgage in the bank, and we always have the next year's savings for taxes. And that so long as we can maintain that savings, and it took us, we've been married 11 years, so it took us 11 years to even be able to save up to be able to do that. But we budget really tightly in the time that he is not working. And right now I'm very lucky as a teacher, I'm still working online. So that's if you know a lull is coming, but for folks, we didn't know it was coming. So I know that sort of is like advice that's not actually very helpful for now, but maybe is helpful if you plan on going into a career that has a season.
Or just the gig economy in general.
We were not expecting this at all. And as artists, I know, and you said it took you and your husband 11 years. It took us about that long as well to figure out we need to have, actually, I would say no, especially when having kids and trying to set up, college funds and making sure they can go to camp and do all these things. So you have to really budget hard for those things. But right now, everyone's there's a lot of loans out there. There's a new artist loan for $1,000 that you can get pretty much right away. I wish I had the information with me so I could pop it in the screen, but I don't. I apologize for that. You have to. I think in terms of budgeting right now and creating economy for yourself, what I'm doing is I am making sure that my knowledge and my history is valued, and that anything I do in terms of this, it has to be monetized now. So what this pandemic has done for me, it's actually taught me my worth, because once it hit and we start doing things like that, I'm being called to be on a lot of these panels because I have a knowledge, I have something to share with people, I have information to give. So I realized all of a sudden it was like, oh, well, now, you know, because all these years I've been giving this away because because that's what we do. We're in this performative art form where we just go, I want to help. I want to make sure people hear this. I'm going to do this. What now? But now it's happening. No, I'm going, wait, my knowledge is worth something. Whether I'm going, you know, and it has been paying off for me, you know, not as much as I would like, but, you know, getting this, getting a paycheck here, a paycheck there, a paycheck here, it's really, really, really helping keep me afloat. But you have to be smart now. You have to figure out, you know, another thing, stop, you know what, you can walk to the store, put your mask on, go call the restaurant direct and get an order. Stop spending that extra $5 delivery fee for Postmates and for all that stuff. That adds up. It adds up. Stop doing it. Get up, go to the store. Cook your own foods, cheaper. Stop doing that. If you want to talk about finances, start there. Because I order from Postmates and all of a sudden I'm paying $8 for a delivery or $10 for delivery. And they're taking 20% from the restaurant. No, go to the store. Get up, save that $8 because $8, 10 times a week, that's 80 bucks. Figure that out. That's $8,000 a year. Where are you getting it from? Where's it coming from?
And that's part of this budgeting, is just understanding where your money's going and where you can cut back. So if you're not, I know I still struggle with this. I still have this like fear of even looking at my finances, you know, and that's really normal, but especially right now, understanding that thing of like, wow, I'm spending a lot on delivery fees, or, you know, I'm spending, I still have this subscription and I'm not using it, and I'm not going to be using it for the next 4 months. Can I cancel it? Can I call and negotiate? But I do think that even if, you know, the budgeting has two sides. It has a how much your income is, and it also has expenses. And expenses are the ones that you almost need to know more right now. And that's the piece that you can really spend time on, and especially if you're just coming out of college, understanding what that student loan debt payment is going to be, understanding what your rent is and what all those payments are. That is something that you can absolutely start doing. And that eventually will give you more peace of mind too, because that's when you start going, okay, this is how much I need to make. So I'm gonna just, as a heads up, we've got another 20 minutes. In the last 5 minutes, I'm gonna ask everybody again, how much you wanna make per year. Okay, so that's coming. So if you wanna be thinking about that or doing some back of the envelope math in the last 20 minutes, it is a really good thing. Those of you who are alumni of the internship program, you know that I make all of you, and this is spoiler alert for people who would like to someday be in the internship program, during your mock interview, I make you all do salary negotiation. So this is kind of like that. This is how much do you want to make in a year? So that's coming. And I want to make sure that I get some of the questions in. There's so many good questions. People have a question about tax deductions and the best way to keep track of those expenditures throughout the year. Do either of you want to speak to that?
I keep a spreadsheet every year that I carry over. So it has a tab for every single year. And I don't keep track through the year. I am very organized, but not down to that point. So what I usually do is I spend most of my money, a lot of my expenses are direct from like the same few places. So I can go on Amazon and I can look through, and I look through everything that I spent money on, and I ask myself, was this for work? And I just keep doing that. And usually the same categories keep popping up. And so I'm able to keep track of them that way. For a long time, I was not traveling for work because I was pregnant with a baby, having a baby, feeding an infant. Like I was here. I was not traveling for work. And so I was supposed to travel for work this March, and I didn't. I was really excited too. It was like mommy's first big trip away for work, but I had spent all that money the year before on the flight, the hotel room, everything. And so that was a category that I had added that hadn't even been there for a couple of years, but all of a sudden it was like I spent a big chunk of money to be able to go to that conference. So yeah, you just look through. Some folks have a method. One of my friends from work, she takes every receipt, and this is hard right now, a lot of receipts are digital, but she tosses them in a bin, and at the end of the year she goes through the bin. So that's one way to do it.
Okay.
Oh, so question, I didn't hear the question. I missed the question. I think I have it now because of Jessica's answer, but can you repeat that question again?
Yes, it was a question about tax deductions and how you keep track of everything that is a potential deduction during the year.
It's hard to do because sometimes you forget, because you go to the movie theater and you shove that receipt in your pocket and you go and you don't look at it, and you throw it away because you think it's trash or whatever. But we have like 12 envelopes in a box, and we put our January receipts in one envelope, February receipts, March receipts. That's the only way, particularly, because I'm about to get, if I'm doing 25 1099 jobs and plus 11 W-2 jobs, plus, which is just like, there's so many things coming. It's hard to just, and then I have to keep all my residual stuff because from TV work residual stuff, because if I have to apply for unemployment, that's what I got to use. So there's paper everywhere. I wish I could turn this around and show you there's paper everywhere. But I also, in the chaos for me, I find calmness because I know that I can reach over in this pile and go through, and I like things that are tactile. I like having it in my hand. Having it on the computer screen doesn't throw me because I get distracted because someone will text me. And I'll go, oh, I'll go to this text instead of seeing what I'm looking here. But having it in my hands makes me go, yeah. And gas receipts do count. If you're using your gas receipts, I saw that Megan just tested that. Keep those gas receipts as well. But you can also, if you use the same credit card, that tells you what you're spending on gas. There's a great question about, and I'm going to read the whole question from Jeff. Do you think we as artists need to be divulging our negotiated rates? I have been in multiple situations where fellow actors ask me what I am earning. I never feel comfortable disclosing or think it is necessary to share, but have been challenged that disclosure is important to ensure we are all earning an appropriate wage.
That's a really good question.
That's a good question.
I have a story. So out of grad school, both my husband and I were asked to design on a show. And so we went to the read through, and after we were each called to a separate room to sign our contracts, and then we got in the car and we were driving home, and then I was like, hey, how much are you getting? And then I heard, and it was so much more than I was. And yeah, we were doing the same thing. We were both designers. So I wish that, and that's happened a lot in my career, where I didn't know till later that somebody else was making so much more than myself, yet we were doing very, very similar jobs. I think it's really personal. I decided, especially when I started teaching this class at my school, that I would be really open and honest about numbers for the sake of education, so that students would know where I was coming from. But that's very different than a colleague to colleague scenario. So I guess I don't really have an answer other than like a story of many versions of the same story where I believe I was paid less because I was a woman. And then I think it really depends on your level of, you don't have to tell anyone you don't have to tell someone something that you don't want them to know, for sure. But then I think the relationship of who's asking you is very important.
Shep, I have strong thoughts.
I think right now we have to rely on our white allies to really share their numbers with us. Because if we're looking at equity in this business, all of us working, because we're doing this, those of us who are doing the exact same job as someone else and getting paid less, it's not fair. Simply based on our, gender identity or our, the color of our skin, it's not fair. And I have had to have very hard conversations with friends of mine who would not divulge. We were hired for a big equity season, and I had to force a friend of mine to tell me what they were making, what they're getting paid. And we're both equally, we're on the same playing field in terms of who we are as directors. And when they finally told me it was $6,000 more a year, $6,000 more than the project that I was directing at the same theater company, same rehearsal time, same everything, and I had to go back to the theater and go, why? And they were like, well, this person has more experience. I go, I've got 3 Ovation Awards for directing and acting. I've got this, I've got that, I've got this. They don't. Again, come back at me with the right answer. Because I think we have to, and we as people of color, y'all, you have to not be afraid anymore. You have to let that go. Because if you want to be paid your worth, you have to understand your worth. And you have to not be afraid to question your white colleagues and say, this is what I'm feeling. I know my gut is telling me the truth. Now I'm asking you to help me. And white colleagues, you have to actually buck up and now do the work yourself. You can be performative. You can go and say, oh, well, Black Lives Matter. No, that doesn't work anymore. That's done. Either you have to be honest with your colleagues of color, or you have to move away inside and stop telling yourself that you're an ally. That is not an allyship, period. So that's where I am with that.
Strongly agree, and also feel like just white allies, we have to come at it from that other side as well, and we have to share what we make. I would like to see everything be public. My area is arts management. It varies department to department. So somebody who's entry level in one department could be making radically less than somebody who's entry level in another department. Even 2 people with the same title at the same organization could be making very different amounts. It is unfair. There has been a big push in our industry for the past few years that has really ramped up over the past couple of months to be more open about what everybody is making. It's when you all get in the position where you are hiring people, you need to when you are making a job description, you have to put the amount in the job description, and that's something that I know we have to work on. But this is part of equity. And I also, there are questions about salary negotiation. Yes, I can do a pickup session on kind of salary negotiation and best practices, but just really briefly, first, it is illegal in California for somebody to ask you for your salary history. It is not legal. Never, ever, 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 ever give your salary history, especially if you're early career, especially if you're BIPOC. They cannot ask you that. That is a change in the past couple of years. Some job descriptions still ask for salary history. Ignore it if you're pressed for it. I'm sorry, I understand that this job is in California. That is not legal. No salary history. Salary, but that doesn't mean that you can't put your desired salary. And they can ask for your desired salary. They just can't ask what you've made in the past. So for desired salary, first, so I have been involved in Emerging Arts Leaders LA. I used to be much more involved. It's ealla.org. And one of the best things about that when I was, early career was sharing what we were making at our various organizations and just saying like, oh my God, I make $10,000 less than this other person. That's weird, right? So the more we can all be open about what we're making, the easier things like, how do I do salary negotiation? That's going to be easier for everybody if we are just open about how much these jobs pay, right? There is, did I already share the salary spreadsheet with everybody? I think I did. So that's a good place to start. So you need to really do your research so that you go in understanding the general range that things pay. And then with salary negotiation, it starts with you knowing how much you want to make. And that's why I'm pushing this, because you will get into the room and you will be super excited about a job, and they will say, we are so excited to welcome you to this team. We're going to get in touch about benefits. I will share that the salary is $23,000 for this job in Oakland. And then they'll keep talking, and you will need to then be like, pause. I would love to discuss the salary with you. These are my requirements, right? You have power in that room as well. Shep, can you talk about, because of course so my experience is more on the employee salary or hourly area. Can you talk about how you approach that from an independent artist standpoint when you're doing negotiation, salary negotiation?
Am I here? My internet just did something really weird, so I didn't know what was going on. Can you repeat that question, because I started having some internet connection problems?
Yes. So my experience with salary negotiation and salary has been on the arts management side. So jobs where you're hourly or salary. Can you talk about what negotiation looks like when you're coming at it from a director or actor standpoint?
It's a difficult question because it's going to be different from every theater you're working with. If I'm working within my own theater, I know what my theater can pay me, and and I know that I'm going to take a huge cut. But my theater is also my passion, So I'm like, I make sure that my agent gets paid. I make sure that SDC gets paid, and I make sure that my health and pension get paid. Something gets put in that. Besides that, I will take a small, fraction of what my salary should be. When I'm going into a larger theater, particularly a Lord DC theater, I'm pushing hard because, again, I've had these conversations with previous directors and previous directors who I trust to give me the right answer. And so I know if this director who is on the same trajectory, now granted, if this other director has a Tony Award and is doing all this doing this, 3 Broadway shows and doing, I'm not expecting that salary yet. I'm aspiring to that salary, but I'm not expecting it yet. But I know enough directors who have worked there, and I will go, how much did you get paid to direct this show? And also, I'm using now as a tactic because right now, all these theaters want to do the Black show, and they need a Black director. And I also want to say that we do other things besides Black shows as people of color. We can do other shows. We have that history. But I know now that I go in with an even stronger sense of myself going, no, this is what I should make. You need me because you want to make a statement. And I am not above taking this job to help you make a statement, because I know that I'm bringing in an entirely person of color team. I'm going to hire people that I've always wanted to hire in these roles. And you're going to have to sit there and take it and pay the money out. So it's negotiations are different now for people of color because we can actually demand our worth. Whereas opposed to fighting for it, we were fighting tooth and nail for our worth. Now it's like, you need us now. If you were telling me that you want to change, you need us. So come with it. Or put yourself out there as a company who doesn't want to do the change, and let's see how you're judged by that.
Thank you. We're coming up on time, so y'all count down 1 more minute, and then we're going to see how much y'all want to make per year with how you want to make that money. I just want to add that in, how you want to make that money, and then how much but first I want to hear first from Jessica and then from Shep. Is there one more thing that you're like, I really want them to know this? Really want them to know this about financial literacy or individual financials? What's the before we go, what's the one more thing, Jessica?
Something we talked about at the beginning was the emotional connection that is to finances, and I felt a lot of shame by getting a day job, and that was a really hard process. What it was, it's actually for a dog food company. It was a high-end animal pet store that's actually a few blocks from Center Theater Group. It's called Pussy and Pooch. And so every day I would answer the phone and say that, and I felt for a very long time so much shame. Like, what if my teachers found out that I was doing this? What if my mentor knew that this is what I'm doing with this education? And all those years they said, these are things you might do. And I know a lot about grain-free dog food. And this is not, it wasn't what I set out to do. And we've mentioned it a few times, but I really feel like it's worth reiterating. Do not feel shame about how you decide to make money and make ends meet. And I've also felt some shame for being a working parent, yes, all tech week, I did not see them at all. I drove them from one theater to a parking lot, at a studio, and dropped them off into the other car. So don't, make sure that you don't feel shame about the way that you make everything work, the way you make ends meet, the choices that you make. They're the right choices for you, and you need to be the one that makes that choice. And they're going to be so personal. There's like Camille said, there's no like one size fits all model. So you do you, and worry less about what other folks might think about it. But then do find the folks that help motivate you, where you do feel comfortable to share, and make that your support group. And especially when it comes to the first couple of years between your education and like when your career feels like it's settling a little, that's the hardest time frame. So find your support system.
That's exactly what I would end it on, that because that's the truth. Make sure that, don't let someone shame you. Don't let someone shame you, because what they're putting on you is what they're disappointed in their own little terse little life. So don't let them shame you. You have to do what you have to do to survive. And I will say this, if you're going to take a second job, make sure you enjoy it so that you don't come home and be miserable. There's, even right now, there's still work out there that you can enjoy. Just don't, why am I working at this bar? I hate this thing. Yeah, guess what? Change it. You have to then go, I'm going to change this because I'm not happy. And then and if you don't change it, your sour unhappiness makes you the person who's going to judge. And who wants that person in their life? Nobody. So change it. It's simple. It's a lot simpler than you think. I have done everything from, I have been a busboy, a bartender, a barback. I actually did no nudity, but I was in a porn movie. Did it, paid well. I do voiceover work. I've done it non-union. I've done it union. I have done everything I can to bring a paycheck into my house. And I am not ashamed about anything I have done because I've enjoyed all of it. And that's what you have to do. Just enjoy it. And the minute someone says, you shouldn't be working at Trader Joe's, tell them you get a discount and they can kiss your ass.
Love it. Okay, so it's time. I'm also going to put my job title at CTG and my salary in the chat. I've been at CTG for 9 years. I've been working in the field for 15. So that's mine. It's actually low. It's lower than that right now because we all are on pay cuts. So here, it's time. How much do you want to make per year? How are you going to make it? Okay. Okay, interesting. Okay, I know, it's hard. It's hard. I'm not sure how much. So coming out of this, I'm going to find that salary spreadsheet. If you don't have it handy, I think I did. Salary project theater. This is a good place to start. So now the next step is to start to figure out, is that reasonable, right? How do I make that happen? Honestly, I have no idea. It's really hard, and that's why we need to talk about these things, is because you don't know how much any of these pay, right? Because most job descriptions do not have pay attached, and that sucks. It's not fair. So what I just put in the chat is a Google spreadsheet that is a crowdsourced project where lots and lots of theater folks from all over the country have put in where they work, how much they're getting paid, if it's gig or if it's salary. That can help you get a sense of how much to ask for. Yes, please repost that salary spreadsheet. It is totally open to everybody. Okay, love it. But the first step is just to ask yourself these questions and try and figure out kind of what does that look like, right? Part-time RN on the side, love this, love these combos, very cool. Okay, we are at time. Shep and Jessica, thank you so much for spending this time with us. It's so nice to chat with each of you, and I appreciate your honesty and your transparency, and I hope you see all of these lovely thank yous now coming through. High school teacher, love it with commercials added on. I'm still seeing all these jobs here too. Okay. Jessica, Shep, have a lovely weekend. Thank you for spending this time with us. And everybody, we will see you next week, and I will be in touch about setting up a separate session to talk about salary negotiation and to continue this discussion, all right?
Thank you, Camille. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Great
Thank
weekend.
you all. Bye.
Bye.